Okay, everybody, get ready to talk to Cliff Dunning about pyramids. In particular, something very interesting. Here we go.
Is it just me?
Hey, everybody, welcome to Paranormal Into the Night, right here on the Late Late Horror Show. I am Dino, as always. Above me is, to my left is Dave Plouffe. He's looking forward to talking all things paranormal into the night. So there you go. Although I think we'll be all over the place. I think there's other things to talk about with Cliff other than the pyramids, but let's start off there. Cliff Dunning, Dunning is right below me. What the heck happened to me here, Dave? Go ahead and introduce.
I don't know. The light bill didn't get paid. I don't know.
It went black. Something's going on here. But
All
go
right.
ahead, Dave.
Well, I'm going to introduce Cliff. So I'm really excited to have Cliff Dunning with us today. He is the host of the Earth Ancients podcast. He also hosts the site earthancients.com. He is a tour leader where he takes groups of people to places such as Rapa Nui or Easter Island. He just returned from there. And he is going to be a upcoming author with his book, The Black Knight Satellite, which I want to talk about a little bit. Graduated from Long Beach State, which is just near me because I'm at Cal State Fullerton, with a BS in business marketing, and he resides in the Bay Area. So welcome, Cliff.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Unplugged camera. How do you like that?
Must have been something paranormal.
All fixed, though. Yeah, Cliff Dunning, thank you. He said everything you need to say. Earth Ancients, a lot of good interviews on that
oh my God,
podcast for sure. Yeah. Let me say a quick hello to everybody, and then we'll get into talking. Connie Clary, Harry Scott, what's going on? Sweet Indigo, Andrea Black, Edward Stewart, good to see everybody. WTF is here. Harry Scott, Andrea. Good to see everybody. Kathy. Good to see you, Kathy. And let's start this off, Cliff.
And one thing I just wanted to bring up real quick.
Yes.
Cliff, since we are live, we do have the chat on the side here. If you feel like you want to answer any of those people directly, if they're asking questions, feel free to interact with the group. It's a great group of people. And we lost
I'll fix it. We can keep going.
That's
blacked out again. Yeah, I like this platform. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's so easy to use.
Camera would work.
It's really great and interactive. It's about a 5-second delay from us talking and the questions. So
yeah, thank you, Alfred MB, for the $1 and $49 super chat. A slice of cherry pie. But yeah, let's start off here. And Dave, any quick thing? I want to talk about the Khafre pyramid, Cliff. And I'm not usually in a black box up here, but I'll fix it. Let's start off with talking about the Khafre pyramid. It's the middle pyramid, I do believe, next to the Great Pyramid. Yeah. And there were some scans that were. It's all in the news. It's everywhere. Everybody's talking about it. It's controversial. I want to get your take on it. Some people say it's too deep. There's no way they can take scans that deep. But I also know that there is ground penetrating radar where the lower you get in megahertz with the ground penetrating radar, the deeper you can get. You can get to 100 feet. So I think they can see something. But give me your thoughts on all of that. Start off.
It's funny. The team that actually did the work were 2 Italians and 1 Irish researcher. The Irish researcher, Philip Bioni, was the one who tweaked the geological satellite and basically took the data without permission. And this is the real interesting thing about this whole project, which is called the Khafre Scan Project. And what he did is, and they had done this before in 2022. They scanned the Khufu pyramid, which is called the Great Pyramid, and they came up with a lot of different rooms and canals and voids that hadn't been recognized before. But at that time, the group people were looking at it and going, well, let's verify this. Let's get some more information. We never got that detail. And this second scan, the Khafre pyramid, is offering the same kind of questions. Now they're using SAR technology, which stands for synthetic aperture radar, and they're showing incredible voids and shafts. And what makes this new scan quite unique is that they're going approximately 1 mile under the ground. And we don't have a
It's a long
technology
way.
that can go that far down. So we're really at the mercy of the technician. This is kind of like LiDAR. If you know what LiDAR is, LiDAR scans the surface of a location, extracts about up to 10 feet below, sometimes 20 feet, and reveals structures, pyramids, roads. They call them causeways, and then you can verify that. With SAR, you're at the mercy of the technician who has to take raw data and convert it. We're seeing things like uh, long, deep shafts, stairways, buildings. In fact, the press release that came out from the Italians, Malenga, who is one of the other key figures in this research, they're saying there's a city under the ground. Well, there's not a city. That's like the worst thing to say. But there are some anomalies that make it very unique. And we will not be able to verify it until we can get some form of secondary, and this is what science is all about. You have to back it up with valid data. We had to get people into the Khafre pyramid in some form or another to verify that there's 5 relieving chambers, which has never been known before, that there's these shafts underneath the ground, that there's a stairway around each shaft, and approximately 1 mile under the ground, there is a huge block that we don't know. It's just a solid block mass. So it's very intriguing. I had Dr. Robert Schock on the program a few weeks ago, and he was one of the early pioneers of using ground penetrating radar on the Sphinx. And he located a void in the front left paw of the Sphinx, which is what Edgar Casey had prognosticated, almost 100 years prior to that. But in his case, after he discovered this void, he was not allowed to go any further. He was not allowed to dig. He was not allowed to use any more instrumentation. It's almost like the Antiquities Department of Egypt said, "No more. You've gone far enough." And this is the big problem I have when we deal with the Egyptian Antiquities Group. Whenever you use high tech and it reveals data, they let you go just so far, and then they pull the rug out from underneath you. There was a group of Japanese, French, and Egyptian scientists who together used a MON technology about 7 years ago in the Great Pyramid and found new voids, new rooms, new data. In fact, they found a new hallway above the entranceway, and they allowed them to reveal that data. But what they were also finding out was this huge void above the king's chamber that is still very, very anomalous, and the data has not been released. And so I applaud the Italians and this group that is doing the synthetic aperture radar, because they didn't ask for permission. They used this technology and just scanned the Khafre pyramid and said, "Look what we found." Well, you can imagine people like Zahi Hawass, the supreme antiquities
Almighty leader, yeah.
directors, were like pulling his hair out, going, "This is all fake data. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way this heck could be there." Well, he has to say that because he probably knows that there is anomalies. There are rooms, there are shafts, there are hidden halls of antiquity that are waiting to be found. So it's a fun discovery. I'm hoping to hear more from Bioni, who is the actual technician who's taking this raw data and converting it into visible data. But we still have to have more information, and it's going to have to be boots on the ground at some point. Perhaps they drill into the rock and they can use fiber optics to see what's in the rooms or something. We just don't know.
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay. When we find some, Zahi Hawass, he's in charge of all of this, right? So,
and how is he still there? I mean, it's like, when you said Supreme, I'm like, he is the Supreme Commandant of that material. And I remember in the late 80s with him, and Art Bell going back and forth to even today, he is still so in charge. And it's been 35, 40 years. When do we have that turnover of that position?
I go to Egypt on tours every single year, and I have the same issue. It's almost like first of all, there's a fundamentalist, religious fundamentalism there that is overshadowing everything. And the government is hard pressed to take care of their people. There's rampant poverty. The education system's in decline. It's really a challenged country. As beautiful as the people are, and as magnificent as the ruins are, when it comes to new tech, it's just really hard for them to consider it. And I don't know if it's a combination of fundamental religion and also a narrative that they need to keep refreshing, which is the same thing, that the pyramids are tombs, and that there is the pharaohs were the builders of the tomb, and all the other anomalies there, which is quick becoming a joke, because every time we send an engineer there, like guys like Chris Dunn and these other guys who are really analyzing the details of these structures, there's no way the pharaohs, there's no way any of the pharaonic period had technology or science that could cut stone, or who could build these magnificent structures during their time. So there's a lot of strangeness there. But to answer your question, Zahi Hawass is more of a PR spokesperson, and he's not the supreme director anymore. It's another individual, but that individual isn't as charismatic as Zahi Hawass. And Zahi Hawass is currently touring the United States doing these wonderful lectures. Well, let's not beat him up too bad, but 4 years ago, someone asked him, have you heard about the amazing discoveries at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey? And he flat out said on camera, where? Who? What?
Yeah.
So here's somebody who obviously is not up to date on archaeological discoveries, let alone the latest technology. So as soon as this SAR scan was revealed to the public, it was all over the news, right?
Right.
He said his first comments were, this is fake, it doesn't work, this is all baloney, without even looking at the data. So I mean, you can get into conspiracy theories really easy and go, this guy's covering up stuff. I believe he's been covering up stuff for 40 years, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, me too. Let me say thanks, Sweet Indigo, for the $10 super chat. Really appreciate it. But that's where I was going with a lot of this. We really haven't, Cliff, we really haven't gotten nowhere in decades, right? I mean, anytime we come across a discovery or something, like you said, it just dies because the Egyptian government or whoever's in charge shuts it down. So what's going on? Are they finding stuff and they're just not letting the world know about it? Is this something they're keeping to themselves? Because we know that area, that region, the Great Pyramids, there's a lot that we don't know that's going on. Whether they do or not, who knows? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, they're just covering this thing up, right? I mean, the whole subject.
You have to wonder because, like I was there last year and I was we were over at the Serapeum, which is in Saqqara, and I was talking to one of the archaeologists. I said, "Well, when's the last time you guys used ground penetrating radar?" And this is one of the field archaeologists who's constantly keeping an eye on the Serapeum, which is an underground facility. He says we don't use ground penetrating radar. And then I said to him, "Well, have you had a lidar scan? Because they're cheaper now. When that system first came out, it was $1 million to do the scan. Now it's about 100,000." He says, "No, we don't use any scanning technology at all." And I was flabbergasted because if they had a good scan of that area of that region, you can see by standing on one of the pyramids that there's all kinds of hills and formations that have to be buildings, that have to be ruins, and they're so used to still using early 19th century technology, surveys, standing on the ground, visual surveys to excavate and to discover new areas. I mean, their big recent discovery was some tombs in Saqqara where there were some wooden coffins. That's how far behind of the times they are. But this is not typical. This is not necessarily just typical.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Do you really think they're that far behind, though? I mean, ground penetrating radar, especially in that region, it's made to go through sand, loose dirt, perfect for that area. I mean, how could they not use that technology?
Well, if I remember, isn't there a military base too, real close to the Egyptian pyramids? And so there's going to be some safety issues with that as well.
Exactly. And that's the excuse they use. It's 30 miles away. It's from the military facilities next to Giza Plateau, which is where the pyramids are, where the Sphinx is, where the Sphinx enclosure and other buildings. But it's close to a military installation. So, but I think a lot of people are getting tired of this excuse of cover up and lack of funds or lack of motivation. And I mean, I'm not an academic. I have them on the show all the time. I'm not a politician, but I was high-fiving and praising these three guys that took this satellite, reprogrammed it, and scanned as they went. They scanned all three pyramids. I've talked to Armando May, who's one of the team members, and they've also scanned the area surrounding the pyramids. So I had a civil engineer on a couple of months ago named William Brown, who owns property in the Giza Plateau. And about 30 years ago, he used some of the earlier ground penetrating radar and found not only tunnels, but he found buildings under the sand about 30 feet within the Giza Plateau, between the Sphinx and the pyramids. And so it's been known for probably 50 years that there is a tunnel system that leads from the Sphinx to the pyramids and back down to the Nile. So this stuff's been known scientifically. Why they don't reveal it, the excuse is, one, militarily. Number two is tomb raiders. So remember, the big issue is that Egypt is a developing country, developing. Not, they're behind. Personally, I think they're 50 years behind the rest of the world. When it comes to using technology, they're very far behind. Now, the Americans are supporting them. The universities in the United States are supporting them. And so they're not falling off the boat, but they're pretty close. They're in the water, so to speak. They really are.
Still,
it's a real pain in the butt, too. It's really challenging because when you go there and you go inside the Great Pyramid, you're looking at these granite slabs that weigh 100 or 1,000 tons. How in the hell do they lift those up? There's no way the pharaohs had this technology. So anyhow, that's the challenge we have dealing with Egypt, is that you're dealing with a developing country that has a fundamental religious overcast. And when I say that, what that means is if you have anybody in your group who's into meditation or toning, who intuitively feel that there's energy, because there's some of those temples are still active. They sit on geomagnetic telluric fields that are bubbling up into the body of into the temples. So you can feel it. You can feel the energy, and they might want to start toning something. You can't meditate, you can't tone, because it's considered a defacement of their religion, because they do that kind of stuff. So anyhow, it's very, very challenging to go visit.
It sounds like it. Yeah, Dave, man, I tell you, I still don't. It's hard for me to believe still that they haven't uncovered something and started digging, like
Well,
the new images and stuff. Listen, I understand everything you're saying and all that, but you see these images, that's like big news. That would be a big deal to find out that there's these cylindrical, towers possibly, or an underground city or something under. How you would let that go and not start digging, even if you were just excavating? Why not start doing that? It's just something that drives me nuts in the field, and I don't get it. I don't. I mean, we know it's not happening. We would see the images of them digging and excavating. So why are they not doing this? I don't understand. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, I am an academic and I teach art history. I have never had more students excited about Egypt and the possibilities of what's there, and them actually coming up to me, and interacting and going, "What do you think? Where can I go to learn more?" I also
can't go to Egypt.
No.
Well, no, you can, but you get what I'm saying.
Because I'm not worried about being promoted or anything like that. I love to show like Brian Forrester's videos in my class. And
wow.
I've talked to Brian him during COVID. And I told him, I show your videos in my class. I don't tell anybody, but the students like really dig it because it is boots on the ground. Hey, let's look at how tall these pyramids are. These are the tallest man-made structures in the world for thousands of years. It's not until the late 1800s where we're able to build something taller. Yeah. And in one of his videos, not only does he go within some of the passages of the pyramid, but also showing us some of the tunnels down in the ground of the Giza Plain. And where we've gone like, yeah, we've researched the first 2 layers of tunnels. We haven't gone any further, and it's great. Like, and that's why I'm so excited by like the tours that you lead, because you bring Egyptologists with you, you get to speak to, or, literally this is our group. We have some private time in these areas. So I'm really appreciative of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The link to Earth Ancients is in the description below. Anybody interested, go click that and go over there. A lot of good guests there, for sure. And hey, Raj,
you can also go to Facebook. Our Facebook page has galleries of every podcast. Facebook Earth Ancients, or yeah.
Yeah, and I think Earth Ancients podcast or earthancients.com has links at the top to everything. So to contact, Facebook feed, tours, everything. So yeah, very interesting. What do you think the Great Pyramids were for? It's the ultimate question. We've heard it over and over, so many different things. Some people think it's a water pump underneath the Great Pyramid, and others, like the guest you just had on, I thought that was really interesting, like a big battery. What it would be used for is an interesting question too.
It depends on the engineering people who are going. Like Chris Dunn wrote a book called The Giza Power Plant about 20 years ago, and he's a NASA engineer. He's a tool manufacturer. But when he first went to the Great Pyramid, the Khufu Pyramid, which is called the Great Pyramid, he went in there and he could tell that it was built in such a way to hold gases and to also it resonates at a certain frequency. You can't really tell unless you sit in the king's chamber or the queen's chamber quietly for a little bit, but there's a very low hum that you can pick up. The other thing that was recently discovered is that it sits on a telluric field. So like our body has a superhighway called meridians. The Earth has a superhighway of energy channels called meridians as well. And apparently, and this has been tested, the Great Pyramid and many of the other pyramids sit on the base of a giant energy field that pumps up geomagnetic energy, unseen but tactful telluric energy. The builders of the Great Pyramid, and this is Chris Dunn's talking now, built these huge stone buildings in such a way that they could create some form of natural telluric energy that was used. We don't know how they used it though. And that's his belief. I'm working on a book right now called The Maya Controversy, and there is a scientist named John Bro who actually tested a number of the Tikal pyramids and discovered that they were also built over telluric energy fields. And he was able to actually discover that at certain periods of the day and evening, they emit telluric energy. What they were using this for, we don't know. But at its height, and this is several thousand years ago, a number of elders have told me that there were 55,000 pyramids from Honduras to Yucatan. And if they were pumping energy out like that, it was more likely an environmental shift of some kind. They were manipulating the environment in some way we don't know. The benefit of that is that it's also manipulating biology. So the physiology of the people who lived at that time were likely benefiting from those emissions. What else they were using it for, I don't know, but I'll tell you, it's been real fun going down to Mexico and discovering what's going on in these various Mayan locations. The Great Pyramid, I believe, was some form of energy producer. We don't know what the energy was because it's long gone. The mechanisms in the interior of the Great Pyramid are all gone. We have no idea what was placed in these huge pits and holes and repositories in various parts of the king's and the queen's chamber. There's an underground shaft that goes all the way to about 100 feet under the pyramid. It's called the subterranean channel, subterranean shaft. There's evidence of great amount of water was run through there. So there's elements of water and hydrogen and gases and telluric energy that all added up to something. We just don't know. And in Chris Dunn's second book, he tries to get closer to an understanding of how they would have been able to manipulate this energy. And he actually considers the scientists of this period. And by the way, his thinking is before 9,000 BC, which is 12,000 years ago, 12,500 years ago, which is kind of a mind blower right there. But that's a different epoch, a different period of time, a different paradigm when science is developed in a different way, more earth-based way. But he called the scientists that built them earth-based science. We're not using nuclear science. We're using earth-based gravity, telluric energy, water, helium, things like that to produce energy. So it's just mind-blowing when you consider that. And the real challenge that we have when we talk about that is that our current science can't bend or understand or are willing to understand. And this is the problem that I have, is that when you go up against academic science or archaeology, their training doesn't allow them to go beyond the fundamentals of their book teaching. And I have a number of really great friends who are field archaeologists who work for universities. And when you pose a thought of a pyramid emitting energy, even showing the data that's coming off of machinery, magnometers and things like that, they're making excuses for its function. In other words, rather than saying, this is amazing, what were they using this energy for? It's more like, this is a freak of nature. This is one-off kind of thing. And that's the problem. We don't have the openness to see this as a whole different epoch of science, another world of science. We're looking at it through our own glasses, which are hazy because we can't, anything beyond 5,000 years, the Sumerians is like, we're hunters and gatherers. Well, the evidence is showing us right now that there was a whole world. The Earth was the whole group of civilizations that were highly developed. Maybe not on the scale that we are today. They developed a science different than ours, but still a very, very advanced people that are building pyramids, that are pumping energy, that are handing down blueprints for other cultures to use to build pyramids, to build temples, so forth and so forth. So that's the big challenge we have today. And that's why I love my podcast, because I'm always looking for that rogue scientist who's had an aha moment and said, look what I found. I mean, Dr. Robert Schoch, who's still teaching at Boston University, is a rogue scientist. Here's a guy, who's teaching geology, senior level geology, who redated the Sphinx to 9,500 BC or earlier. Well, I mean, when he came out with that, people were just shitting themselves, pardon the language, because they couldn't conceive of that.
Dave?
So,
Yeah, I was just thinking with Robert Schoch, he's one of those people who is like, I'm not going to do anything until I get my professor level job. And then after I've been promoted, then I'll start talking about all the stuff I learned with John Anthony West, and he just kind of held it back. And I would love to take a class from Robert Schoch. I think that would be just amazing. There was one more thing with the pyramids that I remember hearing about, and forgive me if it's not under the Great Pyramid, but it's like underneath there's these granite coffin-like structures that they can't even move into place. They literally, you go downstairs and they are these little areas where there's these basically granite boxes, and they can't even figure out how they navigated the corners, how they got there.
Yeah.
that's the Serapeum.
Okay.
Serapeum is one of the places.
Saqqara.
That's in Saqqara, yeah. But one of the other scans that were released by this team in Italy was the Osiris shaft. And what makes this new SAR technology quite unique and revolutionary is when they scanned this, which is in the Giza Plateau. And by the way, it's an open shaft that drops down about 150 feet and terminates at the very bottom, where it's filled with water. There's a number of water channels that go through there. And there's a huge megalithic coffin. There's nothing in the coffin. The coffin may have been technology of some kind, may have supported technology. But and this is a known shaft. It's been known about for probably 80 years or more. So it's been plotted, it's been photographed, it's been analyzed. When the SAR, synthetic aperture radar, scanned it, it verified what was known, which is a good sign, which means that when they scanned the Khufu and the Khafre pyramids, and we're getting this new data, it gives us hope that what they're seeing is actual reality. It's not an anomaly. It's not a fuzzy image that the technician is fine-tuning. It's an actual hardcore shaft, tunnel, staircase, room, whatever, which
concrete evidence.
Helps us scientifically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'd just like them to find one. I want them to start digging. I want them to start, showing us something. But anyways,
Well, you want them to dig on Skinwalker Ranch too.
well, yeah, that's another big. Oh my God! Don't get me started.
But
Yeah, I'm sure Cliff knows all about Skinwalker Ranch too, and yeah, how there's that big structure. Again, ground penetrating radar went 40 feet below, and ding, ding, ding. There's a big ship there. Metallic ship. They say, and I'm like, it's 40 feet down. Start digging. You got a millionaire there to back you. Why don't you do that? But
did they
anyway,
find something underground there that was like confirmed? I didn't know that.
well, I mean, listen, confirmed. I mean, it's on the hill above the plateau there, and for 4 seasons
Oh,
now they've been trying to drill into the side, but they've done the ground penetrating radar, and it shows a ship size object, and they're saying it's a metallic ship that's 40 feet below, but something is stopping them from getting to it. And I say,
hmm.
get the construction gear up there and start digging 40 feet down, and you will know. It's the one thing, Cliff, in the paranormal field, no matter what it is. And listen, I've got my own experiences when it comes to paranormal stuff like that on other subjects like ghost and things like that. But I want to have some evidence, like even with the Great Pyramids and ancient civilizations. If there's something there, please let us know. I'm sick of just hearing people talk about this is what it could be, this is what it might be.
Yeah.
Start giving us some concrete evidence. We got people in there sneaking to take images underneath these pyramids, and we shouldn't be at that level. It's 2025, so
No, I
anyway.
totally hear what you're saying, and this is the big frustration, and one of the core reasons that I launched Earth Ancients is that there is a body of independent scientists, research investigators who are doing exactly what you're saying. They're bending the rules a little bit
Yeah,
and doing their own digs or funding their own research. Uh, but the problem is that you go up against the universities and you're squelched. So you only can go so far. The big plus is that the internet helps, the YouTube channels help, independent books help as well too.
yeah.
So uh, you just keep stretching the envelope, and you hope for something to happen. I think that a lot of this will eventually start shaking down because, uh, especially in Mexico and in Guatemala, when we're going to be touring in December, uh, the research is uncovering all kinds of unusual artifacts, unusual design configurations that support and capture energy. Uh, Egypt's a little tougher because it's kind of like I said, it's a little behind the times. It's a developing nation,
Right.
uh, and without saying it's a little backwards, it's a little challenging, and you can be put in jail for crossing the line on some of the areas. Whereas Mexico, it's more like a fine. So, no, I hear what you're saying. It's like it is very, very frustrating.
Yeah, no, no.
It's like we're all wanting more data, but we can't get it. But hey, like David was saying, this new SARS technology is a nice a nice new piece of science, a nice new piece of scan technology, and I think there's more to come on that. There's more data that's going to come. So
Well, I
just
think
keep.
it's an exciting time to be living for us because we do have, besides the SAR, you had mentioned the LiDAR technology earlier, and that is opening up to us, Central America for the very first time. This would, growing up, it was always, oh, Egypt is over here and maybe Gunam Padang over here. But all of a sudden we have something much closer to us that's really rewriting early history on our continent, where we can run LiDAR over, as you had mentioned, is becoming more economical. And we're getting so much more research and stories of these ancient civilizations. there's a number of books. I was just, looking over at my bookshelf, like I think it's the Temple of the Monkey God or something like that, where, they really start talking about their time in Honduras and Guatemala and finding these temples, finding pottery, finding images. Palenque is another location that is just off the wall amazing. So
yeah, we focus on Egypt, but yeah, you're right, Dave. It's all over the globe. I mean, there's a lot of different sites that, if we use this technology right, hopefully we'll start finding a lot more. So,
well, the idea too is that it's going to break open somewhere.
I hope so. I've only got so much time.
It's already started, my friends. I just had Dr. Richard Hansen on the show. He is the director of the El Mirador Basin Project in Guatemala. If you remember, about 6 years ago, a consortium of universities used LIDAR in the Guatemala Basin, which is close to where El Mirador is, and they did a 200-mile swath. A plane ran over some of this jungle area.
Yeah.
And they uncovered 60,000 unknown buildings, pyramids, causeways that Hansen said would take 200 years to properly survey and excavate. 200 years. Well, it makes sense because one of the things they don't tell you, though, is that a lot of that is from an earlier phase of Maya culture. The pyramids look strange that they have multiple sides on them. The causeways, which are known as the white roads, they're called sakbis. That's Maya for white road. And one of the areas that is confusing to the public, that is also confusing the archaeologists, is that the earlier phase of the Maya stopped over 2,000 years ago. It just abruptly ended, and then what we call the classic Maya begins at like 2,000 years. There's this big period, and they say that the Maya are approximately 5,000 years from their inception point. The problem with that is, and you don't hear this anywhere, is that this earlier phase, this earlier Maya, had another language that has not been deciphered. And these are the guys that built the largest pyramids in the Americas. The Ladanta complex at El Mirador are the largest pyramids in all of the Americas. They're huge. Look up Ladanta complex. They are huge pyramids. And when you study them, they're engineering feats. We're always, thinking that the Great Giza pyramids are the only great pyramids in the world, the only great engineered pyramids. These Ladanta pyramids are monstrosities. And we don't hear a great deal about it because it's a small research group that is funded by the University of Utah. But what's coming out of El Mirador is fabulous data. These guys were hydraulic engineers. They captured water and they distributed underground. They had very sophisticated sewage systems. A whole epoch of Maya culture is really unknown in these early pre-classic periods. And apparently, I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag a little bit. In April, we're in April right now, end of April, end of this month, end of May, they're going to release some data that shows that the genome, the human beings that were living at that time, were very sophisticated, and that they likely were much more scientific than we give them credit for. So my big problem is I believe that there was a catastrophic event approximately 12,000 years ago. An asteroid hit, and we have evidence of this now, that wiped the surface of the planet fairly clean of cultures, animal life, and we had to do a reboot. This is where Göbekli Tepe comes in. If you know anything about Göbekli Tepe, these were undersurface temples, and they're learning centers. I've been there. These T towers, these T columns, basically were cosmological maps that they used to teach people how to plant at the right time of the year. They had animal husbandry, it's a reboot center. And when I was talking about that earlier phase of Maya, that this event wiped out those people. And so the classic Maya that we see now, the loincloth natives, that's what is considered the height of the Maya culture. It's not. And we're slowly going to learn about this. Those early guys are the ones who tapped these telluric fields, this energy highway I was talking about when we first started, and built pyramids on top of them to use that energy in some manner. So a whole different technology that we don't even consider, because our current batch of archaeologists can't consider that science as a factual part of history, because we have no basis to understand that. So they can't stretch their minds to consider that the earlier epochs actually used energy.
Isn't it the point of scientists, though, to discover new things?
Independent scientists.
Right. Yeah.
And
look up John Burke, Burke,
Yeah.
Burke.
Yes.
In his book is just brilliant what he discovered with these pyramids.
Is this the time period that Randall Carlson calls the Younger Dryas period?
Exactly. Yes.
Younger Dryas hypothesis. That's the first time I heard of that. What's that all about, Dave?
Randall Carlson is a geologist, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he says that there is a geological event that takes place right around 12,000 to 10,000 BC, and we have a totally different types of animals prior to and after that, and it's something that was as Cliff mentioned, it was a worldwide cataclysm that happened. And it kind of it makes us reboot society. So yeah, Randall Carlson's a fascinating individual. So I think you've interviewed him, haven't you, Cliff?
Yeah, we do it every year. We do.
Okay.
He'll be on in June. Yeah, we support the Cosmic Summit conference where he's a keynote.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean this event is slowly being coming up through research, through geology. If you go to most indigenous cultures, they talk about the aftermath of the big impact, and apparently every 12 or 14,000 years we go through a asteroid field. The planet goes through an asteroid field, and 12,500 years ago, we unfortunately went through one where the asteroids were so big that they weren't burned up in our atmosphere, and the impact caused worldwide tsunamis, caused the oceans to rise, in some places as high as a mile, destroyed the megafauna, which are the big land animals, saber-toothed tiger, woolly mammoth, and wiped out likely about 80% of humanity. And this is where the stories of Atlantis and other mother cultures come up, where this devastation was so great that it just wiped out huge continents of people. And so those who survived were rebooting what they knew. And this is, again, and I was just out there last year, Göbekli Tepe, and a new place. And this is also very interesting. Göbekli Tepe, I think it's dated at 11,500 for its inception date. They just found a new place. It's called Karahan Tepe. It's 12,000 years, and then there's a new one above it by 30 miles that they haven't talked really about it. But I just found out from one of the field archaeologists, some of the artifacts are 14,000 years ago.
Wow.
And what makes that crazy is that our current science is like, well, wait a minute, we were hunters and gatherers at that time. We didn't have any thought. We didn't have any writing. Well, they've already found these T-shaped columns with cosmology: the sun, the moon, some of the nearby planets, animals, what looks like very rudimentary writing. So this is another teaching center for the reboot. So,
is there evidence of where these some of these meteor impacts were across the globe, or?
It was actually, it's funny because the majority of the impact was in the Atlantic and also in North America. The Carolina Bays are thought to have been impact craters. Carolina Bays.
Okay.
And some of the impact can be seen from various LiDAR scans from the satellites in the North Coast, eastern seaboard.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Well, I think that's too one of our arguments for why we don't have any large animals here in North America. That everything that really was larger was over in Africa, where it was on the opposite side of the globe, and we just got kind of wiped off of the map. Anything, larger than a grasshopper.
Yeah. You got to wonder what happened. So 80% of humanity was destroyed, killed in this impact. Who were the survivors? Where were they that they survived? Well, high elevation, number one, but also there obviously is some areas that were not impacted. The Middle East is some thinking, some of those places. Africa was another possibility. But I've had scientists on here that believe that Australia was a survival area, and also South America. And I have some people that believe that Antarctica was a spawning area for certain types of hominids, certain type of human types. So,
well, it's funny you bring up Australia because Lizzie in the chat, she's from Australia, and she says our indigenous folk in Australia lore of history precedes their history. Sadly, oral lyre is much lost.
Yeah. The bush people out there have a long history. Yeah.
Well, we have our own, Native Americans here too. When did they spring up? Right, around.
They came across the frozen Bering Strait. If you believe your history,
exactly, Dave. Yeah. So
that's changed too. I mean, I had a indigenous archaeologist from Canada, and she has gone through the areas that were initially dated to 15 to 20,000 for human habitation of the North America, present day United States. And these dates are going back now to 150,000 years after they redated them. And this is just in the last couple of years that this redating has gone through. But obviously, if humans were there 150,000 years ago, that changes our understanding of evolution. Who are these guys? What are they doing?
You did a show on earth mounds and effigy mounds. And, it's one of the things that, I've taught a little bit about in my class. Dino lives near Serpent Mound in Ohio.
Yep.
And when we think about all the Native American effigy mounds, there were something like 100,000 in the United States. And there's like 1% of those that exist today. It's just like, it's like, screw it. Let's just bulldoze everything. That is our way of life.
I think our education has become lazy. They just don't want to even think of rewriting history or rewriting, the books and changing things. So the more that we learn, and I think we know a lot of this stuff that we do find ends up becoming hidden in our universities and vaults underneath the Vatican, whatever you want to believe. but it just gets hidden. Why mess with it? Let's keep the faith. Let's keep civilization rolling. But yeah, if we want to get anywhere, right, as a civilization or as a people, even to the stars and further than that, we gotta start doing something a little bit different on this planet, right?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cliff, did you go into any museums in South America?
Oh, I
Central
have a
America?
whole chapter on that. The Western culture edits artifacts. In other words, if somebody's wearing a funny suit or holding technology, a figurine's really refined looking, and or there is what appears to be technology in stone reliefs, it's not shown in American or Western European museums. On the other side, if you go to Mexico, South America, in Central America, those museums will show you figurines from various periods that are wearing suits, that are wearing clothing that looks very modern, that are wearing technology and writing in what looks like aircraft. I have a collection of figurines that were so well designed that one figure is wearing a spacesuit. And I can say that freely, a spacesuit.
Yeah.
And I was so curious about the accuracy of this suit that I sent a number of photographs and details to an Apollo astronaut, a guy named Ken Johnson, who was in charge of the Apollo 12 and 13 suit construction. And he commented, and I have this as a quote, that the accuracy of the suit for zero atmosphere is so accurate that it's almost like one of their suits.
Mm.
And I have it in this book, The Maya Controversy, which is not going to be out for another year, unfortunately. So there's something going on. There's either a period of time where the science was developed to a point where they could actually have a propulsion system that lifted them off out of the gravity. You have to wonder about the Maya. If you look at the early codices they found, most likely the Dresden Codice, the detailed accuracy of how they describe Venus and Pluto and the moon is almost like they're orbiting the planet and can tell the gravitational pull of the planet to the craft that's orbiting. The details of cosmology in the Maya is also off the scale. They just know things that don't make sense. You know.
Are you possibly saying, Cliff, that they got into aircraft and circled some
Yeah.
of these planets?
There's pictures. In fact, there's a famous museum in Bolivia, South America, called the Gold Museum, and the figurines are rockets and they're jets. And one German scientist, this is like 20 years ago, he was an engineer. He took one of those and he photographed it and he measured it and he reproduced one and he flew it. And it flew. Apparently, it was so aerodynamically perfect that didn't need an engine in it or anything. He could fly it. I think he made it out of balsa wood or something like that. And he reproduced it perfectly. And it was like, well, how did they create this?
Yeah.
Who was the one who created this piece of jewelry of a jet or an aircraft so accurately that it could fly? You know.
Well, they would definitely.
It's kind of Eric von Däniken, you know,
Yeah.
in a way, which gets a little crazy. But you know, the older I get, I begin seeing these anomalous artifacts in museums and going, something's up here.
Something's definitely up, that's for sure. I mean, there's a lot we can't answer, right? I mean, if the Mayans were able to leave our orbit, which the possibility is there. I mean, hey, we don't really know. There are signs, but they would definitely have to know better science than we got today, right?
Well, there's more proof. A couple of years ago, a archaeologist from Arizona University was down in Tabasco, and he
It's hot
discovered
down there.
Some LiDAR scans that were done by INA, which is the Mexican version of the American universities of archaeology, and they discarded them, and he rediscovered them and started following the path and found a huge causeway, man-made. They call it a platform, and it looks just like a runway, an airline runway.
Hmm.
And it's so well designed that he went out to it. He couldn't believe his eyes. He went out to it and he excavated about 20 feet. And oddly enough, it was made to support huge amounts of weight. It had one layer of heavy stone, had another layer of cement and mortar. What looks like some early version of cement again is applied, and the reason for it is given that it's a meeting ground, but it's almost a mile long by about 500 feet across. Just exactly what our runways are made from, the dimensions of a runway. And I've always looked at that and went, God, that is just like a damn runway. You know? So
It's amazing what evidence is out there. Yeah.
All kinds of strangeness out there, you know? And the thing that's challenging is that, you know, Dave has it right. You know, if you're if you're not tenured and you're in school as a teacher and you start talking about this stuff, you could lose your job. You know? You mentioned Dave Robert Schock. Yes, he's tenured now, and he doesn't have to worry too much. But even there's guys that are tenured have been told to be quiet. You know, don't rock the boat about history. Don't rock the boat about these anomalous discoveries. But I mean, I think to know what has happened in the past helps us with the future. You know, gives us an understanding. If our planet went through an asteroid event that wiped the planet clean of its land animals and humanity, how do we prepare for that in the future? You know, what's the evidence of this great disaster? Now I hear rumors that NASA has ballistic missiles orbiting the Earth that would be used to repel an asteroid attack. But you know, is that true? Or is it not? Is there a secret organization that NASA supports, that the Department of Defense funds, that has to do with deflecting an asteroid hit?
I think a lot of that's going on. I mean, you know, we really don't know how far we've advanced. They won't let us know. So we've caught glimpses of things. You know, even NASA. You know, with what's that? STS, whatever, you know, the shot from, where was it, down in Brazil, South America, somewhere, that went up and supposedly shot, you know, it was a energy beam that shot a ship or something like that. I don't know. I think you know what I'm talking about, but
oh, you mean they used a laser to down a UFO?
Yeah, and they actually got that on film from NASA. I mean, you know, we've got technology that is beyond our wildest dreams. It's just we don't know anything about it, so it is a possibility. But yeah, I don't know. Dave, any other big topics you want to hit on? I know we just,
you know, the problem with Cliff is that he has all the big topics.
Yeah,
you know, one of the, you know, I'm a fanboy of his podcast because he covers everything from, you know, Edgar Casey to the Olmecs to, you know, the lost cities of the Amazon. The Cathedral Code episode I enjoyed because I teach about, you know, the great Gothic cathedrals and such. I want to ask, actually, what got you into the paranormal? Has this always been something
wow, that's a long story. That's a long story. I went to school. Actually, my the bio you read doesn't, you know, I've had many lifetimes here on Earth. I got out of school. I was an art major. I got into I wasn't a very good student in high school. In fact, the only reason I got to college was that my portfolio was so pristine they allowed me in. So I have a degree in illustration.
Wow.
And I started working in high tech out of college. But I, from a very young age, have always questioned history. And my grandfather was a physician who had this immense library, and he immigrated from Germany in the early 1900s, and it was always a focused on the world, what the different cultures had been through, what the Chinese and the Indians and so forth. And this library reflected his interest, and I became very interested in this history. And from a young age, I questioned our written history, what has been handed down to us. It seemed very edited to me. And as I continued in my career, I started working in high tech and got another degree in business marketing. But I got so tired of it, and there was a well-known conference in San Francisco called Whole Life Expo in the late 1990s. And this was the largest alternative exposition and conference in the country. There's 6 of them, one in LA, San Francisco, New York, Toronto, Georgia, Austin, Texas, and 1 or 2 other places. And I went to one, and I was very unhappy with the lineup because I was a great reader of all these unusual topics. And I went up to the producer. I said, you could do this, this, and this. And little did I know, he called me 2 weeks later and said, "You want a job as my program director?"
Oh, cool.
So I quit. I quit my job as a high tech marketing analyst and began developing programs for Whole Life Expo. Later I started working with the Learning Annex, which was a very big night school for adults, with the same kind of people, not just Graham Hancock types, but personal growth like Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson and those kind of people. So I've always been interested in new thought. And so when podcasting developed in the early 2000s, I was on that. I was on that for a while, and so I was a program director, and then I stopped doing that. I started doing my own marketing again, and was supporting people with developing podcasting. I launched 3 or 4 clients' podcasts, cut my teeth on it, kind of figured out the pros and cons. And in 2014, I launched Earth Ancients. Well, Earth Ancients is based on my years as a program director with these thought leaders, these people who are, you've read Graham Hancock, you've read Robert Schoch, John Anthony West was a friend. And in the early days, I had all these guys like John Anthony West, like Zecharia Sitchin,
Oh, wow.
And so these are thought leaders. These are guys that are saying, look at our history from this point of view. Look at this artifact. Look at, an independent archaeologist. Okay, the history says this, but wait a minute. Look at the road. Look at this. How was this road construction? What are some of the techniques that are used? How did our ancient ancestors understand cosmology so well? How was it handed down to them? Were there space brothers? Well, if you look at the early Maya, they routinely talk about connection with off-world types. I've had Navajo and Hopi elders who are still connecting with off-world types. They're coming down on their ships. Hey, what's going on, brother? Oh, wow. Now, you or I would look at that and go, what the hell?
Yeah.
But if it's part of their culture, so it's and the other thing, and I'll just say this briefly, is that Western science, Western history is myopic. They only look at one perspective. The Chinese have lived on the planet for 5,000 plus years. Their history's different.
Mhm.
You know, the Indians, India, their temples have been around thousands of years. We don't incorporate any of their history in our history.
No.
And so we have this very myopic view, a very tightly focused view that doesn't allow other cultures to invade it, which is really wrong, because these other cultures have lived on the planet thousands and thousands of years, and we're not taking in their history. Why not?
Well, it's so funny when I think about other cultures as well. When I teach architecture, I talk a lot about Frank Lloyd Wright, and the buildings that we construct in the modern age, we figure out the precinct, the perimeter, and then we divide up the building into different rooms. Frank Lloyd Wright spent a tremendous amount of time in Japan, and he builds his buildings with the Japanese sensibility, where you start at the center, the living room, the hearth, the fireplace, and you expand out from that point. And then the walls are wherever they are. So it's a totally opposite way of thinking. And when we think about like our most famous architect who does buildings so differently, who we embrace today, has brought his ideas from another culture. And you're right, we are close-minded to that. And unless we go over there, take it, and bring it under our own guise, we're going to repel it. We're just not going to, embrace it at all.
And let me tell you how bad that is. This intolerance for other aspects. There are whole scientific reviews and data that talk about different type of hominins, different type of human beings that developed in South America that are ignored in North America. There's history is taught differently in South America and in China than it is here in the United States and in Europe. And we need to collect this data and begin accepting it and begin using it, because we'll break out of our rut. We're in a rut right now where our history is very stagnant. We're saying, well, hunters and gatherers after 5,000 years. Go to India. Some of those temples are 3,000 and 4,000 years. And they're so sophisticated that there was a whole culture before that led up to that development of that temple that were very sophisticated. You look off the coast of India. Dwarka is a very sophisticated city that's underwater. It's about 400 feet underwater, that they believe was around over 12,000 years ago. It had sewer systems and toilets and running water. I mean, come on,
Yeah,
So
mostly ignored,
pretty
because
much.
it's pretty sad. Oh boy, yeah. We're getting towards the end here. I wasn't even going to bring up other like alien civilizations or the giants, the Nephilim, or anything like that. I mean, that would take us into another 2-hour talk, really. But that does play a part in all of this. It really does. Whether they helped with guiding us to advance a little more quickly than we did,
Yeah.
that's a good question. So I don't know. I don't know where you want to go from here, Dave. You got any more? I'm allowing you. You had like 50 things written down. Pick another topic that you want to go with.
Oh my gosh.
You mentioned Michael Cremo too. I mean, listen, the guy has so much to offer, and a lot of that is ignored too because it's unbelievable, but yet it's there, right? So,
Well, if you don't have Michael Cremo's Forbidden Archaeology book,
right.
it's like a tome. It's like a Bible. It's like 500 pages.
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing about Cremo is that he's a Caucasian from America who studied Hindu history, the yugas, the cycles of man that go back millions of years. We're talking about sophisticated Homo sapiens sapiens that go back millions of years. And he's got a book of evidence of their artifacts, stone, sophisticated coins that are a million years old, human Homo sapiens sapiens skeletons that have been found in various layers of rock that would date them. He's got one skeleton, I think he says it dates to 100 million years. Modern humans, and that's throwing everything out the book, out of the water. But that book is so huge, it's just overwhelming because he has chapters on buildings that are exceedingly old. He has chapters on technology in the form of carving tools, batteries, plugs. So it just shows that there's a system of cyclic cycles are in motion. We live, we die in one cycle. Like as an example, I just had an interview with an Indian scientist who follows the Yuga system, and the golden age is known as Satya. And Satya Yoga is about 80,000 years ago, and the development of man is so sophisticated that you have what we would consider paranormal abilities. You could close your eyes and see beyond, your local area. You could see around the perimeter of the earth. You had great knowledge. Paranormal abilities include everything you could think of, from predicting the future, prognostication, which is the same thing, and all these wonderful attributes. And apparently, according to his findings, we live to be about 800 years old because the body regenerated much slower. And after that period was the Trita, where and by the way, the Satya there's some biblical references. If you ever read about Noah and the ark, he lived to be 800 years old. And many of the other characters of that are that old in the Bible. The next level is the Trita Yuga, where we don't live as long. And we're starting to get into technology. And this is the period where he believes Atlantis fell, because Atlantis was very technologically focused, but they didn't use degenerative types of power. They used crystal power, which is piezoelectric energy. Our semiconductors use piezoelectric energy. So, and then the next level is Dwarta, and then we're in Kali Yuga right now. And we're just coming out of Kali Yuga, which is the darkest, the slowest, the least productive phase of humanity. So that's something to study. If you want to read something about Earth cycles, read the yugas, which are fascinating. No one really knows who developed the yugas. It's really the best example of human evolution in a cyclic manner.
How far back do we go when we had ages of like 800 and all of that? Does that precede
80 to 100,000 years ago?
Okay. So that's before the Great Pyramids. And so I mean, I'm just throwing out the idea that, listen, pyramids are conducting this energy upon the earth and possibly regenerating us biologically somehow. But that's a possibility too. Who knows?
No, when I first I was talking to an elder. He passed away, and he wrote. Carlos Barreros wrote this book about the Maya. He's the one who talked about 55,000 pyramids from Honduras to Mexico, tip of Mexico. That if they're sitting on telluric fields and they're pumping telluric energy in the atmosphere, is that a benefit? It sure sounds like it. Maybe that's Satya Yuga or Trita Yuga, the earlier periods where the physiology was the key. Having this pristine, and you're right. Maybe that's what helped them live to be 800 plus years
then you started getting all of these pyramids, and the civilizations declining, and pyramid isn't working, whatever, and all of a sudden our lifespan starts to decline. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. Anyways, Dave, what do you got?
It's true. It's true. And that's the sad thing about Egyptology is that they can't stretch their minds beyond the pyramid being used as a tomb, because the pharaohs come, a few thousand years ago, their ancestors were these brilliant engineers, scientists, highly evolved humans. And what can the pharaohs do? Well, that must be, I want part of that energy I want that memory. So I'm going to make this my tomb. So of course they're thinking of it as a tomb. But our Egyptologists are so laden with current dogma, they can't stretch beyond the possibilities of this being a tomb. They can't look at the 1,000-ton stone granite blocks that were used to build it and wonder, well, wait a minute. First of all, how did they cut that?
Yeah.
How did they put that in the position? No. This is not a tomb.
Well,
remember, we got Coral Castle too, where one man supposedly built that entire, during a lifetime. So Coral Castle, I mean, could it be a bit of what? Well, he didn't tell us, so we don't have any idea, right? So
he did leave some interesting tools, though, and there are some documents of him actually using some kind of machinery and moving big slabs of that coral reef into place. I got to go there. It's funny. I keep thinking about that place, Coral Castle in Florida.
Yeah, you've been all over the world, but don't skip Florida. It's a short trip.
And I lived in Tampa before I was enlightened. I was a while ago.
A little late, yeah.
I want to do two things real quick. One, Raj had a question.
Yeah, I think it was this one. Cliff, did you know they are still uncovering ancient civilizations at Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro? Is that the one, Dave? Or?
Yeah. No, I talked about Dwarka. Dwarka's under the water. But Harappa is the site where they have evidence of bodies that are still highly irradiated. So there's thinking that there was the great story of the Mahabharata story of the battle for Earth, and that they used special weapons, and the people who died in that location fell under that weapon system. So that tells you that those cities are probably ancient.
Wow.
Because the Mahabharata is based on a family warring for the rights to own Earth, and that a lot of the characters are extraterrestrials, ETs, humanoid like us, but coming from other planetary systems. So that's a whole nother show.
I was going to say, a lot of people are saying, can you have them back? I think if we do have you back, Cliff, if you're willing to come on again, I think we would dedicate the show to the Earth ancients, the ancient civilizations, the alien side of things, or what could have been from other planets, other solar systems. You know what I mean?
You could just go through the 800 or whatever shows and pick, a couple or whatever, and I'm happy to, happy to talk about them.
Okay. And my last question is, where is Atlantis?
Well, that's a funny question. We just had Giorgio Santini, who wrote the book on transcribing Plato's famous dialogues, and he now places it on the western side of Africa.
Okay. Like in that Mauritania area?
I don't know what that is, what you're talking about, but it's inland, and they found geological concentric rings.
Yes.
But I had to agree with a few different geologists that is, first of all, it's too small, and we had Randall Carlson on last year talking a little bit about it, my big thing is kind of an amateur archaeologist is that you don't find any ruins. If it was Atlantis, there should be temples, there should be foundations or stones in a logical order that would support buildings and stuff like that. Santini's belief is that the tsunamis that hit that area were so significant that it would wipe it clean of buildings. But no, if you have a temple that's cut out of bedrock, it's not going to move to the point where you're losing your foundation. So that's the big problem for Randall. My big problem is no archaeological remains. So I'm back, Dave, to the theory where it's in the Atlantic off the Azores.
Okay.
Yep. That sounds about right.
That's my spot. So,
well,
sorry, bud. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Okay, so yeah, no, listen, it's 9:30. Any last thoughts, Dave, or we ready to cut this up and split?
It's 9:30. It's time for dinner for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Cliff.
I really, go ahead, Dino.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, Cliff, thank you very much for coming on. I want people to know that you do have your own podcast. It's earthancients.com. And you got links for everything up there. You got a book too, right? That you've written. And
I wrote a book on cannabis about 5 years ago. And then I couldn't use cannabis anymore, so I kind of let that slide. The book that is really a combination of data and my personal research is called the Maya Controversy, and this is based on years of working with the indigenous people of Yucatan and the elders who I discovered as a program director, who I flew up and we had indigenous panel discussions. But they enlightened me and began helping me understand their history. And what we're told about the Maya is so completely wrong. And we're looking at them from our own development. And you can't look at some of these advanced cultures from our side of it. You have to go beyond and stretch and go, well, if they settled 30,000 years ago, what were they using for tech? And their tech is different than ours. Their tech is subtle energy in the same vein as piezoelectric energy. And this is where I keep using the term telluric energy. And it's been known by NASA. NASA came down to Yucatan about 10 years ago before my mentor and elder Humboldt's men passed away, and cordoned off the Great Pyramid down there. It's called El Castillo, the main pyramid, and did resonance testing and found that that pyramid is a resonator. It's giving off energy. And we only know this because it was kind of leaked to the public, but they found out a whole bunch of other stuff. And for some reason, we're not privy to that information. I don't think that the powers that be want to know that previous societies, previous epochs had sophisticated technology. It shifts everything. And you're right. They would have to rewrite the history books that prior to the very big devastation, the cleansing of the earth through asteroid hit, there was a sophisticated society.
Yeah,
So,
we have to get to a different level is what we got to do as a society, as a people on this planet. And I don't know if we're going to get there, Cliff. Let's hope we do.
We'll get there, because it's like this SARS team. It's like, hey, look what I found, without going through the correct motions. It's not like, hey, we're going to pay you $1 million for permission. No, these guys are like, we're going to grab a satellite, we're going to reprogram it, we're going to scan it, and look what we found. There's a skeleton of a 25-foot human underneath the pyramid.
No, listen, we're at that point where technology is starting to advance so fast that information is going to be factual. But again, let's hope that happens before the meteor hits again or something cleanses the earth, And hey, Raj, please email me. Please email me. I would definitely have you on, buddy. You know that. Anyways, thank you, Cliff. So real quick, and then we're done. Khafre or Khafre Pyramid. You think there's something under there? It's a city. We just need more information, right?
There'll be more press releases. If you follow Earth Ancients, I'll have Bioni and Armando May on in June.
Okay.
That's 2 of the 3 team.
Perfect.
And also look for my interview with Robert Schock and Dr. Manu Sesade. They are experts. They've both have done serious scanning of the Giza Plateau. And I'm not going to blow my horn too hard, but it's a pretty good interview. It's 3 hours. 3
Nice.
hours. That's how good the information was. And I didn't edit it at all. So those guys are just letting it rip.
Nice. It's Art Bell time, right? 5 hours back in the day, man. Anyways. Okay, thank you, Cliff Dunning. Everybody go check out the link below, please. Check them out. And yeah, enough said. Until next time, thank you for the super chats and joining us. And we will catch you next time. Right, Dave?
Thank